Welcome to the Crownsman Show, everyone. I am one of your hosts, Jerrod Downey, and I'm joined by Mr. Roy Slack and Mr. Rory Bamford. Gentlemen, welcome.
Welcome. I brought in my co-host Lenny to manage your
Yeah, for anybody who doesn't know, where does Lenny come from? Why is he important to the show?
Well, he's important for subscribers. Increase those subscriber numbers. My nephew Hudson, he obviously offers really good advice as
Absolutely.
a 9-year-old. So, yeah, and he saw everything going off the rails the last 2 weeks. So he's on the lookout now.
Glad to know he's watching the show. Is 9 old enough? Roy, would you let a 9-year-old watch this show?
I don't even let my kids watch, and they're in their mid-30s.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
You know that we are as well.
My brother.
You're producing content. I'm sure you don't watch it.
So my news for the day, I realized last week that all of us are in the wrong business completely. As you've heard on the show, got a 10-month-old, and so I've been introduced to Miss Rachel. Have either one of you heard about this?
No.
Miss Rachel sings kids songs on YouTube. I want you to guess how many subscribers she has.
350 million.
Wow, okay, that's an insane number. She's got 12 million followers, 12.5, and she's got 393 million, 257 million, 129 million. These are just some of the views on her videos.
Whoa.
You know what? I get it. I mean, my son and his wife are over with their baby, and nobody sings songs to their baby anymore to put them to sleep. They put on YouTube and they put
Miss
on
Rachel.
These songs.
So I'm in a great mood because all I think about now is the wheels on the bus go round and round.
Oh, stop! No. I've introduced my daughter to some good tunes. So I actually will sing some lullabies. They're just from Eminem, Lady Gaga.
Okay.
You know, the top artists of our time.
See, there's a bit of a generational thing going on. When I sang to our kids, it was James Taylor and Jackson Browne. So,
well, I mean, I don't know if either one of those are great choices. Gentlemen, welcome. Roy, what do we have for beer today? Welcome to the Crowd Show. We're going to get into some heavy industries.
Yes.
But before we do that, we're going to get that 5% courage to say what we really feel. Brought to you by cranky old men drinking beer, and we get paid every time we say it. Roy, over to you.
Fernie Brewing. For those of you that know your geography, Fernie is in eastern BC. Fernie's about as close as you can get to Alberta without a prescription. And it's ski country. I've never skied there, but I hear it's beautiful. And what we've got today is a Witbier, which is not my favorite, to be quite honest, but it's a wit or wheat beer. So it's a lighter beer. It won't have the malt that a lager does, but it'll have more spices involved, maybe a little bit of fruit. I haven't tried it yet, so I don't know. But it's different than the last couple we've tried. So
cheers,
I haven't tried this, but I'm good to switch it up from the IPAs. Although last week's IPA was phenomenal.
So,
cheers, gents.
Cheers. And the review comes after, so we don't.
Yep, stay tuned for that.
Stay tuned. Make sure to subscribe to this. Lenny, right, Rory?
Lenny.
Gentlemen,
is Lenny that little pile of crap?
Yeah, he's watching shit.
Just checking.
I love the green.
Because Lenny's a character in Steinbeck's Of Mice and Men, but probably a different Lenny.
You know that I actually played that character in the play.
You played Lenny?
I did. Yep. Now bring on the jokes. Yeah.
How big were you then?
How big was I?
Yeah. How tall?
Oh yeah, Lenny was. I
was an adult. I was about 6. I was about 6'4", same as I am now.
Okay.
Yeah. And I never got so many compliments on how believable the character was, and I'm not kidding. I was like, and people were coming out like genuinely complimenting me.
Jerrod, I've read the book, but is he the person that he was special needs?
Yes.
Socially challenged?
So, yeah.
Keep
so
going,
Sean,
guys.
thank you.
I know the word you're trying to get to.
No, I don't want to say that. I'm not putting that out there for people to see.
Lenny represented every man.
He did?
I hope not
According to
every-
Steinbeck, he did. That's another story.
Oh,
Oh,
really?
okay.
Well, yeah, it is a great for anybody. I mean, most people have probably at least read it or seen the play or whatever. But it was actually an incredible story.
Let's talk about our heavy industry world tour brought to you by Sabinow Equipment. Find, market, and sell surplus and used equipment. We are heading to events across North America and Australia and filming episodes on location. Email us at info@crownsman.com to be part of Crownsman's heavy industry world tour. Did you know cementitious binders can be responsible for up to 70% of the total GHG footprint of mine backfilling processes? Now you can replace up to 50% of the binder in your mine backfill operations with Graybond, Graymond's new low-carbon cementitious binder. This lime-based alternative binder maintains a 40 to 70% lower GHG footprint compared to typical cement and can adapt to varying mine conditions without compromising performance. Learn more about Graybond at graybond.com. Join us in the depths of the mining world, where global leaders and industry giants converge to shape the future of mining. From groundbreaking technologies, advanced machinery, revolutionary safety measures, to sustainable initiatives. This is the voice of mining. This is Mining Now. Showcase your company to millions worldwide. Book your episode now. Visit crownsman.com.
What are we covering today? Roy, do you got any topics, anything that's on your mind, on your heart that you want to share with us? Preferably mining, energy, construction, agriculture related?
Was that Rory or Roy?
That was
you asked?
Mr. Slack.
Mr. Slack.
I do.
Yes.
I've been pondering this, and
thirsty.
it's a problem, and I don't have an answer for it, but I wanted to put it out there because it's a situation our governments are in today.
Uh-oh.
Because, and this isn't political, although it does have political overtones, but critical minerals, they're called that for a reason. In terms of self-sufficiency, for technology, in terms of security, there's a number of minerals that governments have identified, many governments, that are crucial to their future and their security. We've got lots of those minerals in North America, both in Canada and the States, but our challenge is developing them. So the situation governments are in, critical minerals are important to develop, but the environmental aspect is crucial too. Governments want to get reelected, so they're trying to get the pulse of the people. And then there's, particularly in Canada, there's Indigenous relations as well. So all of these things combine and make it incredibly difficult for governments to move forward and support development of critical minerals. That's my topic, my point for today.
Roy, I have some interesting data on this. So this is as of 2023. And this, I see why there's the political overtones, because I'm going to read off just some of the critical mineral production. This is production share of critical minerals worldwide as of 2023 by majority producing countries. So we've got gallium. China's the leader with 98.36%. We have niobium. Niobium, thank you.
Yeah.
Brazil,
I guess you didn't take chemistry in last year.
No. 90.36 is Brazil, so they've got a big up there. Magnesium is China, 88%. Tungsten is China, 80.77%. Roy, how do you say bismuth? Bismuth?
Oh, I don't say it like that. That's how you say it. Bismuth?
Yeah, sure. So that one is China, 80%. Silicone, China, 78.95%. Graphite, China, 76.88%. Cobalt.
So I'm going to make an observation there, Rory, and it's not because China has much more of these minerals than other countries.
Okay.
It's because it's much cheaper to mine it in China than other countries.
Right.
So right now, if I want to buy niobium,
Yep.
Do I establish a mine in North America, which could be fairly expensive per pound, or do I buy it from an existing market? And that's the challenge we have now, because if China decides to, in trade wars that have been off and on over the years, they decide to restrict the export of some of these critical minerals, where do we get them from? And it takes a long time to develop a new mine. So even if we have it in the ground, we've got some problems.
Yeah, you don't
Hold
see.
on, Rory, before you go. Roy, I think someone restarted your dryer.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if you want to go and turn it off again or if you want to keep going. It's just someone did turn it back on.
I thought you were in a professional studio, Roy. That's what you told us. You told us you rented a space and bought cameras and.
Yeah, I'm still, I can't afford the alimony. That's the trick.
The alimony that's coming when you go turn off that dryer?
I told one of my friends, one of the cranky old men, I said, I can't afford the alimony. And he said, I can. I thought that was an interesting observation. Do you want me to go check on it, or is it quieted down now, or what's the story?
It's not quieted down.
It's not quieted down.
No,
so
there's
I
definitely
think
a
we would
dryer
like you
going.
to go check on it again,
Okay.
please.
Okay, see you in a bit. See you in a bit, Roy.
See you soon. I'm just going to ask Roy the question. He'll have no idea what I asked.
When it comes to balancing the growing demand on your grid with the growing need for more responsible, sustainable energy production and generation, you need the right partner. A partner who delivers long-standing grid expertise from a team dedicated to your unique needs, and one who supports that team with innovations designed for the future needs of your grid, while being rooted in proven electrification excellence. ABB is that partner, offering solutions that meet technical requirements, regulatory compliance, and recognize the need for sustainability in your business operations, as well as in the lives of the surrounding communities. Solutions that expertly blend physical services and solutions with next-level digitization. Solutions that enable safer, smarter, more sustainable operations. ABB is the name to trust to help modernize your grid. Learn more at abb.com/ca. Attention builders, we've got everything you need to know about the grit and grind of the construction world in one show. The Construction Show is where you can share your expert techniques and strategies to help keep the crew strong and construction sites secure. From foundational tips, industry trends, safety strategies to advanced equipment and machinery. Be part of the voice of construction. Book your episode and showcase your company to millions worldwide. Visit crownsman.com.
Well, Jerrod, what are you talking about today? What's on your mind there?
I'm talking about basically editing, mapping out details, adding stuff back, editing stuff down, and going in that horrible circle that all development takes. What was...
I guess they got mad at him turning the dryer off.
Leave all this in. Leave it all in.
Roy probably doesn't know we can hear it, so it would just be amazing if he came in just completely disheveled.
Yeah. He had to go through a crowd to turn it
A
on.
couple of rips in the suit jacket.
Yeah.
That was funny.
We should just end the show right now.
Yeah, that's good.
Roy, it sounded like the dog got set on you for that.
Good Lord.
Thank you, Roy.
Bane of my existence. Well, Jerrod made comments about his daughter, but I know if I say something about the dog, I'm going to get in big trouble. So
People are going to hate me. That was one. Roy, do you remember the prank that I pulled on April Fools, like about 5 years ago?
Poor Butter.
So, Roy, I'll keep this very short, but it was I don't really do April Fools, but for whatever reason, in my head, this seemed like a good idea. So I posted on Facebook, Butter, we have this little tiny dog. She's like 10 pounds. And when she sleeps, she puts her head upside, like I'll hold her and she'll just put her head upside down, so she looks like she's dead. So I posted on Facebook that she bit somebody and that I promised myself if I ever had a dog that attacked people, that I would not be that person that walks around with a dangerous dog. And so we had to put her down. It was very sad. Completely absurd.
That's a joke. That's an April Fool's.
But it was me holding a tiny dog. That was
really small.
Really funny. How could it be a dangerous dog?
That's just warped. You know that the general public is going to react negatively to that.
They reacted.
Like 3 years later, people would see me and still bring it up. They were just, I said, okay, well, yes, if I had been holding a large dog, I would understand. But just They just saw the post. Their mind just shut down. They didn't see that I'm holding a 10-pound fluffy dog. Anyway.
Well, I complain about having to walk the dog and I get in trouble.
Yeah, exactly. No, you're not supposed to. No, dogs are not to be messed with. So, Roy, do you have any solutions to this, or are you just pointing out a problem?
Yeah, I'm trying to get my head around it because it's a problem that is going to require collaboration to solve. So the mining industry can't solve it on their own. I don't think government can solve it on their own either. But I think it's got to a point where an industry hates government to get involved. First of all, I say that from experience. In a capitalist society, industry wants to do their own thing, and that's worked well. But when you get into a global situation like this, government is going to have to get involved in some way if they want to maintain some level of independence when it comes to these minerals. So I don't know the answer, but I know it's out there. I know people are trying to figure it out. Government has stated some positions, but they're too little, and they're going to take too long.
Roy, this is all coming from, like, we're talking batteries, we're talking solar, we're talking, well, wind doesn't really apply except you need all the materials, obviously, for the windmills. But, like, the batteries and, like, the power gen that they're talking about, electrification is turning into a disaster, to put it frankly, for a lot of these jurisdictions, right?
Yeah, that's just one small element, no pun intended, of this discussion, because when you talk about security, you're talking about technology. And your iPhone or your computer or whatever. Yep. So it's the battery electrification is one of the elements of it, but it's probably not the main element when it comes to national security.
Tech. Yeah, the tech, like what? Okay, so you're coming at it from that angle too, which is, you hear that a lot discussed. Like, obviously there was like the Huawei debacle, kind of like that was kind of like a main one. But like you're saying, is with all these phones and like the manufacturing and that's using up they use a lot of minerals, like critical minerals, even just for those devices now. And then you've got the AI gobbling up a whole bunch more for the electronics infrastructure too, that's now another security issue on top of like mobile devices and everything as well. So it doesn't seem like there's any movement like that's even close to fast enough in that regard in North America.
Yeah. Well, if you look at Canada's definition, for example, of critical minerals, it's to maintain security of Canada and their partners. It's to advance the environmental programs in place, which alludes to battery electric. And I can't remember, there were kind of three tiers to it, but certainly the security and the economic prosperity of the country, our quality of life, and meeting some environmental commitments or targets.
I'm sitting here listening to you both talk. It's like I don't even know how to add much, because it's so. I mean, there's literally thousands of people trying to figure out this issue, and it doesn't seem to be getting anywhere. Does it come down to, though, kind of what you're saying, Roy, is rather than a case-by-case approval process where these processes take years and years, most companies aren't even going to try to get something started because there's no point.
Yeah.
If you meet a criteria, would that be a way that it would solve the issue? That you put out the regulations, you have the regulations, but if you meet them, is there any way? I don't know, even government infrastructure. If it's like, does one government put it in place, but then the next government, the next level of government, like on the provincial level, could just shut it down? I don't know how it all works, but what I'm saying is, like, okay, if you want to build a car, if you meet these regulations, you can build the car. You don't have to get approved by the government to do it. It's just you have to align with what the regulations are. But that's not what it's. That's not the way it is in minerals.
Tell you what I would do, okay? and I'm never going to run for office for a number of reasons. Background, one of them, but it was just charge, no convictions. But if you take a critical mineral and you say we want to develop this, the government would have a special task force to speed up the permitting of that. You would still have to meet all the environmental requirements, but you've got a special group that's looking at it and it's prioritized these minerals. The other aspect of it is funding. And Plan Nord in Quebec, I might not have this right, but I always liked what they did. Rather than just giving money to people, they said, as a province, we'll invest. Okay? So we will become shareholders. So if the mine makes money, we get money back. And that makes all kinds of sense to me. So you've got a critical mineral. You put a special group together to process the permitting. That doesn't ease the permitting. It just means it moves faster. And you consider funding that as a shareholder.
So it's a task for. Well, how is it done now?
Easy for me to say that,
but how is it done now? You have a better idea of it than we do. Like there isn't some sort of task force.
In general, the government isn't. Sometimes the government will provide subsidies, bursaries, tax relief. Like some of the things that have happened in Ontario recently, tax relief for some of the big manufacturers to locate here.
Yeah.
So
a partnership does seem like where and it might not be, it's probably not going to be a majority share, but say the government puts up, they're going to take a 20-30% stake. I mean, but then of course the capitalists are like, no, it's got to be private. But yeah, you're talking about like these massively bogged down systems, and I even think like what you're saying, Roy, is like I don't know about that it's the Northern Action Plan, I think that the government of Quebec calls it, but like getting like the Indigenous people involved with it as well and making them a part of it, so maybe they have a stake. It seems like there would be a way that you could kind of like turbocharge, and you see like even in like the GDP of Canada, it's just Jerrod and I have talked about it like several times. I mean, kind of anytime it comes up, it's just kind of flatlining and like nothing's really happening, and it seems like there would be a case to be made now for that sort of partnership to kind of get involved quicker and move faster to start developing more.
I think so. I mean, there's some examples where it works, and maybe as a country we have to just look at some best practices on how to advance mineral projects. Again, meeting all the environmental requirements. Not talking about shortcutting them, talking about speeding up the process. So
what sort of length does that take? That's a big hurdle usually, right, for these projects?
Yeah.
Or like
I mean,
one.
So Rory, look at it as an investor. Mm-hmm. If you're putting money into it, into building a mine, knowing that building a mine is going to take 5 years to 20 years, when do you get your return on investment? It's not even a question of whether you get a return or how much. The question becomes when, and these become long-term investments. Of course, the upside is that investing very early on is the best chance to get 50 times your return, right? But it's also a good chance to get zero back on your investment. Mm-hmm. So it's risky, but yeah, there's a challenge there in terms of funding.
But so you think government backing on some of these projects, a task force to expedite the permitting process, that's still to me though, when I'm hearing it though, it still leaves a bit of a gap. Like the environmental. Okay, are we 10 years to decide if a project is safe? That doesn't make sense.
Does it normally? It probably doesn't usually take that long, does it, Roy? But we're probably 2-3 years. Or does it sometimes?
But you have to do your homework to be able to put your proposal together to get approval. You have to do consultation with the community, which could be the Indigenous community. It could be the community at large. There's a whole process, and it all takes time. But after saying that, I know there's groups can move that very quickly forward if they have the response time. But if you do a study and it takes a year and a half for the government to come back and say, well, we're not happy with this, and this.
Right.
Is that what happens?
I shouldn't be quoting the numbers, but
as an example,
the point is to make that as expeditious as possible.
Actually,
so
I'll give it.
You can respond.
I'll give an example. This is on a business side. So this is directly with like CRA. You have to put in a request. Like say you have like a payroll issue and you have to do like request a review because you like overpaid and you want the refund. They give you a timeline of 12 to 18 months for that. So I can just imagine what it would be in a mining approval process.
Yeah.
Like 12 to 18 months. So what happens is you pay interest if you've like overpaid, or they say you've underpaid. You just pay interest until they've reviewed it and can refund it. So you're out of pocket that money until they review it. So I can't even imagine what the mining studies, like what they're dealing with.
Yeah.
Like it's, and that, like you're saying, Roy, that's probably where you can, like, there should be that element of like, let's get the partners on side first and let's move on these. If we're saying it's a security risk, let's move on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, getting the partners, like when you look at like the Indigenous, like let's say if you're going into BC and you can get provincial approval. What's unique with Indigenous communities is that, or even individual communities, is that they don't have to abide by that approval process, right? So
What do you mean, Jerrod?
Well, let's say there's
you're right. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a band within a province. That band, the province, it may meet all their regulatory requirements. It might meet them federally, but then at the local level, it doesn't.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Which makes some sense too, because what the government looks at is the technical aspects. Are you going to pollute the water? What are you going to do to the air? The community looks at the cultural aspects. How is it going to affect our youth? Sure, it'll create employment, but does it bring more drugs into town? How does it impact us? So that aspect of it, and there's overlap there for sure.
Yeah,
but
but
they're two really different perspectives for looking at that.
Yeah, and it's a unique thing in the sense that you couldn't make an Indigenous task force because the outlook of one band in BC is going to be completely different than the band in Ontario. They're not going to be aligned at all, or they could be, or they could not be.
Yeah, it's a good point because they tried that in Ontario to a certain extent, and it just fell apart. And it was bringing representatives from all the bands. But then if you're in Thunder Bay and the local band there says, well, all these groups are going to decide what happens in our community. It still comes down to that local consultation, which is so important.
Yeah, and then of course you get into stuff where if you're trying to bypass those, then it creates more tension and more problems, and it's a tough one. Yeah, you brought up about the toughest topic there is right now.
I mean, it's worth discussing more. Like, it's definitely...
Jerrod, it might be a 2-beer topic. That's how tough it is.
Yeah, by the second beer, we probably actually would come up with a solution.
I think so.
I'd like to revisit, though, because it's a tough one, and it would be interesting to see how other countries, if there's been success in that.
Do you know what?
Take a little research, though.
I will say this, before we jump into something else, the recycling aspect of it, and I look at recycling and minerals as China's taking all this, they're taking all this recycling, right? They're getting all these components to also produce the minerals. That's where I think, again, Canada, it's we ship most of our oil out of country to refine. We probably don't have very big recycling capacity. It's things like that. It's why can't we start putting these in place? But then there's, of course, like Roy's saying, who's investing in them? How fast do they want to get the return on their money? And for me as an investor, I'm looking at investments today. if I'm making 13% a year, I'm like, I like it better when I'm making 25 or 30%. So a recycling plant that's only going to give me 5 to 7%, then you have that discussion. So it's
we'll have to wait for a while, but once their standard of living and their labor rates get to a point, they don't have to be equal, but get to a point where other countries can be competitive.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, China's worried about India.
Yeah.
Right? Because China's labor rates are going up.
Yes.
And the subcontinent will be the cheapest place to have manufacturing. But China has the infrastructure in place, so there's a cost of entry into any manufacturing. And anyway, it's a very complex.
When you said that, I had to look that up because people talk about the rise of China and that, and it's like, and they are because their population is so big. Their GDP per capita is $12,600 US.
That's USD, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
For reference, the USA is $81,600 per capita. It's unbelievable.
Monstrous.
An unbelievable output.
Most of that's markup.
Yeah, we might need a couple beer for that one. Let's stumble into the next topic because I
threw a ringer at you there. Sorry about that.
What I would like to do is it would be interesting if we could find, if you feel like doing some digging, Roy, some countries that have done it well, like that have actually been able to do it. And I don't know. Maybe how they've done it. Maybe China. Yeah.
I thought you were about to say, Jerrod, it'd be interesting if we find someone that knows what they're talking about.
That's actually a discussion we're going to have off camera, Roy. So
okay. Time for a guest. Getting too complex.
It is true. We should reach out to the CRA. They'll be able to help out.
Roy, what are you thinking about today? What's on your mind? What's on your heart?
So I was thinking about construction because we're going to be heading to the world of concrete. And so I was looking at like the top 500 companies in Canada, and I found that listed there is, I don't know how you say this, it's AECON Group or AECON Group.
AECON.
Anyway, is it AECON, Roy?
Yep. Very good group.
I found it interesting. Like they definitely specialize in nuclear power, which for the switch of like generating power, they're working on a plant, one of their projects that's going to power the equivalent of 300,000 homes in Ontario. And the footprint of it, it's the Darlington Nuclear Project. The footprint is tiny, like compared to like what you would think of like a normal nuclear plant. It looks like it's going to be a fantastic, and I think like nuclear, of course, has all the connotations, all the fun videos and the movies and drama about it.
Are people still in that mindset though?
Of course, yeah. It's the number one.
Which Roy?
SMRs, small modular reactors. There's something a lot of groups are working on. They'd be ideal for remote mining operations.
Yeah, that too.
They're environmentally friendly. The challenge still comes down to waste disposal.
Yes.
And there's no community that wants, like there's been experimental, Pinawa, Manitoba was one. There have been experimental waste disposal sites, but there aren't any communities that want that waste in their backyard. Mm-hmm. So that's a challenge we have in Canada. There's a lot of nuclear waste. Mm-hmm. That needs to be stored. It's all being stored temporarily now. Needs to be stored permanently. But the small modular reactors are, from a technology standpoint, a great option for us. From a public perception standpoint, a challenge.
But it would take off so much. Like I found out in Ontario, 20% of power now in Ontario is nuclear. So they're actively using it and actively bringing more online. And it does make sense. Like, do you want to go dam up rivers, or do you want to set up some nuclear, like some of these modular plants?
I kind of have this is kind of not a very complete thought, but it does kind of feel like what we run into here is like this 20% of Ontario being powered by nuclear. You don't even hear that. The people don't even talk about it hardly. I mean, obviously, if you're in Ontario, you'd probably know. But it just doesn't seem. I think Canada has a real issue with just not interacting with industry. Like if you listen to the CBC, let's say, all these people that work in heavy industry, if you hear their programming, it's hardly anything to do with heavy industry. Mm-hmm. It just isn't talked about. And it just seemed, and I think now we're going to run in, I think we're going to pay the price for it, actually, especially with what's going on in the U.S. Like, they're going to deregulate. They're going to get things going. Other countries are going to see that, so they're going to follow suit to pursue it. I think we're going to pay, I know this is a very negative outlook on it, but I think we're going to pay a serious price for, frankly, just pussyfooting around heavy industry and not getting things done. I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to deal with each individual Indigenous community and get every province on board and get the federal bureaucracy out of the way. I'm not pretending to know how to do it, but other countries are starting to do it, and we're going to pay for it.
Roy,
in a huge way.
I have in Ontario, it does seem like you see like this being worked on. They're again AECON. It's AECON, right?
Yeah.
AECON? They're doing a refurbishment of another nuclear plant. They actually acquired an American company that specializes in nuclear, so they definitely have abilities in that, along with other things like bridge building. But do you think Ontario, out of all the provinces, they seem to kind of move faster than like a lot of what I see across Canada compared to others? They kind of have to, they almost in a way seem like they're stepping alongside like the American market in a sense.
One thing Ontario is doing, and I've got to applaud them for it, and I do know Vic Fideli from his North Bay days, and he's the finance minister. Or he was the finance minister.
Okay.
But, they have worked very hard to attract manufacturing. Mm-hmm. And the trend for years was to get away from that. We want to be the designers, the marketers. We will let other countries do the dirty work, so to speak.
Right.
There's been a real push in Ontario to reinvigorate their manufacturing industry, which is primarily the auto industry.
Yeah.
And so that's good to see, because, if you're shipping all your material out of country for other countries to build the stuff and sell it back to you.
Yeah.
So Ontario is pushing that, and that's good to see. They've been publicly criticized for how they're securing these groups in terms of tax breaks, in terms of incentives, which us as taxpayers are paying for, us as Ontario taxpayers. But, there's, how do you attract these companies to Canada? Our labor rates are a little higher. There's unionization. There are some things that are challenges. So the government has stepped forward and said, we want to create jobs. We want to create manufacturing. So good for them.
And just to further that point, I looked it up because I wanted to see like average salary in Canada, average Ontario salary now is about $60,359 per year, so $30.95 per hour. Entry level positions about $39,000, but like experienced workers making up to $146,000.
What's it for retirees?
Roy, what is it? I don't know.
No stat there?
No, I got nothing.
You don't get the tax break, by the way, just so you know that.
Yeah, I know that. I know that very well.
No, because I think everybody our age is getting a check for like $250 or something.
Yeah.
Are we?
Yeah, I think so.
I get
Christmas shopping.
I get an old age
Right?
security pension, and I get 55% of it taxed. So
yeah, there you go. Yeah, so
I'm left with 125 for my for my pickleball membership.
Do you play pickleball?
No. Jeez, I'm not that old.
No, it's young people playing that stupid game.
Don't even get me started. Don't even get me started.
Uh-oh. First the dead dog, and now criticizing
not
pickleball.
An actual dead.
I can just
dog.
see the viewership dropping.
Okay, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that
Play
thing
tennis.
where play tennis. Yeah, I'm going to do the thing where you explain the joke. The joke is that the dog, this principled thing of like, I won't do this, and then you end up applying it to the wrong thing. That's the joke. not about killing the dog. I didn't kill the dog.
Killing a dog is no joke, Jerrod.
Exactly.
You said about. Sorry, ha.
See?
The AECON. I wanted to ask you something because one thing that, like, on an investor standpoint, I mentioned, like, in my notes, like, their stock has, like, kind of tripled in the last year. They paid off. They they sold off a division. I think were able to pay off like a big chunk of debt.
Yeah.
Their EBIT, earnings before interest and taxes, is it's kind of all over the place. But as me as an investor looking at it from a contracting perspective, when you were at cementation, and it's fine if you can't disclose like specific numbers, but did you find that from year to year, as contractors, it goes up and down quite a bit?
EBIT is it depends on what you mean by EBIT. Are you talking about the actual dollar value or a percentage of revenue?
Sorry, and I referenced the wrong one. I'm actually looking at pre-tax income, not even EBIT. Pre-tax income, so before income tax. So like as an example, AECON in 2023 is 177 million versus 2022 it's 43 million. So it goes up and down a lot. So it's actually your earnings before tax is what I'm looking at.
Okay, so EBT, because EBIT is earnings before interest and tax.
Yeah,
and
I messed up that.
If you're heavily leveraged, that's another issue.
Yeah, exactly. So just earnings before taxes.
Yeah. If you look at it over time, it evolves and it's based on your business model. So if, for example, you're an EPCM group, there's a certain margin which, is more approximate to consulting. If you're a contractor in design build and you're an EPC contractor, so you supply everything and design it and build it, then you've got a certain margin. If you are a traditional, labor contractor, then you're going to get that margin on labor. There's different elements of the job, of the work. So engineering is usually a fairly high margin.
Okay.
Some specialized equipment like raise boring would be a high margin because it's high capital. But after saying all that, over time, we have a pretty good idea of what our EBIT's going to be.
Okay. And
it doesn't vary a lot unless you've got a big job you're losing on. So that's the thing in contracting is you might have a couple of jobs that are doing quite well, but if you've got one or two losers, it drags everything right down.
In their financial report, when I was reading it, they actually talked about that because part of their the legal part. So in an annual report, I read the CEO's letter, go straight to the bottom, just standard practice. I don't read the fluff in the middle. Don't need it. Go straight to the bottom, and they said part of their business basically is they have to go and try and get this work that's it wasn't included in the scope because probably stuff comes up that they have no idea is going to be there.
Yeah.
So they have to go after and try and get that work. So that's like what you're saying. Some of these jobs, you're going to have that at the end of it.
The construction industry, a big part of it is claims management.
Yeah.
And we never really did that at cementation. It was we really focused on a partnering model where we sorted all those things out with the client. But in big construction projects, I know that once you're finished the project, claims management can go on for 2 or 3 years until you finally settle on the extras and everything else on a large construction project.
Crazy.
Which is a cash flow impact. There's all kinds of things that it impacts.
Which I do like to see, as an investor, if I was investing in that company, I want to see them just straight out say this is ongoing basically for this project. So I was just curious. So you would be able to predict whether it's EBIT or earnings before taxes, based on your book of work coming up a year in advance or longer, you can probably have a rough idea of what that's going to look like from what
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We got to a point where we would know the percentage of work in hand we would need in order to meet our projections for the coming year.
Yeah.
And it was pretty, the numbers and the percentages were pretty close, and they allowed us, something like COVID throws a wrench into everything, but in terms of the general overall market, understanding our market share and understanding what our EBIT is, we were pretty good at that, and we still are.
Jerrod, one thing you'll find interesting too, I found this out, like AECON uses they have in their balance sheet, it's called unbilled revenue, so they can see what's coming up, but it's not technically, it hasn't been invoiced, I think they call it unbilled revenue. So it's an asset, and I'm finding like even with us, like with our, like the new media package, we're going to be running into that similar situation. We have a bunch of companies going, yeah, we're going to do this, but it's not actually getting invoiced yet, but it's going to be coming up. Like you've got like a basically official documentation. It's just, it's in the future. AECOM actually books it. It's an asset for them because they know it's coming up. It's not being invoiced yet.
How do they book it though?
It goes into the asset column of your balance sheet.
The construction industry does that, Rory. The mine contracting industry doesn't.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
So are they using a
other than work
contract?
carried on in the month that we know is completed?
Yep.
But work in hand, we show that, but we don't book that because any company can cancel a contract at any
Absolutely.
time. Just say we're going to self-perform, or the project's being shut down for whatever reason.
Yep.
And so we're very, mine contracting is a very risk-adverse business. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And people might think of it as a risk taker, but we're not. We're very risk adverse.
But I don't actually understand even how they're booking it. Is it like there's a contract signed? Like how can they even put that in an asset column? I don't understand.
Yeah, probably, Jerrod. They're probably got like the official agreement. It's not going out to invoicing yet because the project hasn't started yet. So once they start on it, Roy, you probably know better than me, but I'm guessing once they start, that first invoice would go out for a certain percentage of the project.
Yeah, different contracts have different setups. It sounds like what they're doing is booking some work in hand,
Yes.
Which some construction companies do.
Yep.
So there's always a little bit of risk there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But it's just interesting because I guess as you get into more like larger ticket items, you would see that, and obviously you have to get those across the line.
But Rory, you would want, as an investor, you would want to look at the amount of, work in hand that they're forward billing, because if their overall revenue is a certain amount and 50% of that is, forward billing or whatever they call it, then that's risky.
Right.
If it's 10%, it's,
But I guess
I don't have the exact
if it gets canceled, it's not the end of the world.
But I guess if you're building a bridge, it's being funded by the provincial and the federal government and all that, and you've got all this contract signed, it starts in a year.
AECON did, Jerrod. They're building the Gordie Howe Bridge is their side of it, like the Canadian side of it. AECON was building that.
Right. So in that sense, that's a project that they have secured. It just the revenue has not started from that. Right.
We're back to bridge financing. I think we talked about that.
Oh no.
There we go. I can leave my topics for next. My topic was Miss Rachel. Yeah. And
wow.
Yeah.
How to get 12 million views by singing a kid's song.
No, Roy, not 12 million. I think one of her largest one is 393 million views.
Oh, 12 million followers.
12.5 million followers. Yeah, subscribers. That's just on
and
YouTube.
Lenny does applaud both of you. You have really been on excellent behavior compared to the last 2 weeks. It's pretty.
Sorry,
I didn't realize he was going to have such an influence.
Who was going to have an influence?
Lenny.
Yeah.
Well, your comment about Rachel reminded me of the episode that Katy Perry did for Sesame Street. Did you ever hear about that?
No.
It was never aired because it looked too sexy. Anyway, Google it.
Stop trying to get me to Google this weird stuff, Roy. I'm trying to.
We're talking about kids shows.
It didn't actually air?
No.
They didn't
never aired it.
As a cauliflower?
To air is human, but they didn't.
There you go. Roy, let's give a review before this completely goes off the rails. How do you like? Well, no, Roy, you give the official one at the end. Rory, how did you like this beer?
What's the percentage on this one? 5%. I do like Roy's choices of beers because they're all pints. I think these are pints. I can really taste the orange peel and coriander.
I don't even know what a coriander is.
It's a spice.
Oh, it's a spice. Okay.
It's a folk group, Corey and Ander.
Out of
That's
Nova
not
Scotia.
real. That can't be
They were
real.
at Mariposa.
Yeah, right. At least it's not Mar-a-Lago.
So, Rory, how do you like it? How do you like it? Is it
Well, I warned you at the start. It's not my favorite, but as far as a wit beer goes, it's actually pretty good. Like, I didn't catch the citrus. I caught more banana in there, which I don't know if you notice. Sometimes after you mention
How do you
it,
taste banana. What the
Yeah.
hell?
no,
not at all?
but
No.
with the spices.
Yeah, I can now.
But it's got a nice full mouthfeel. It's almost creamy, which is rare for a wit beer.
Yeah,
I tried.
right.
I
You
tried.
just made that up.
I'm trying to keep it clean here, guys.
Oh, full mouth and creamy.
Oh,
And how do you rate that?
long road to hoe.
Full creamy mouth. Roy, how do you rate it?
20 out of 20.
I haven't decided on a 14 or a 15. Like if this was a type of beer that I really liked, it would get a high rating.
He's a hard man to please, people. Okay.
So, but your official rating is?
For cranky old men drinking beer,
Yeah, I think it'll be a 14.
14.
Ooh,
Yeah, that's funny. I like this beer. I thought it was quite nice, actually.
I'll give it a 4 out of 5
really,
for sure.
really full and creamy. Well, I don't really know where to go from there. Probably nowhere. Gentlemen, thank you very much for doing this. We'll be back next week. The audience love Rory. We've got some great engagement numbers. People just love.
They love it. They love it. They are just.
And we're really honored that people love this.
Thank you so much.
Providing a lot of value.
Honored and surprised.
Thanksgiving to
Mostly
the
surprised.
Americans, because it is their Turkey Day. We're filming on their Turkey
It
Day.
is. We got Black Friday tomorrow.
Woo! Head
Yeah.
to the Walmart.
For all the bargain
store.
hunters.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
fight over some TVs and get those minerals moving into the
Buy
market.
some. Hey, we'll buy some critical minerals tomorrow. We'll just cross the border and
Oh,
mix them up.
yeah.
There might be a tariff.
That doesn't come in until that's the January. Was that January
we gotta
4th?
count down to that.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen. We will see you. Thank you to our sponsors. Thank you to our viewers. We'll see everybody on the next episode. That was the weirdest way I've ever done. Well,
Yeah. We'll see you too, Jerrod.
Bye.
You and the singer that does the kids songs. Is that something she does?
so that's exactly what I did. That's exactly what I did. Because that's
Going
what
for
I.
the followers. 12 million followers
The
now.
wheels on the bus go round and round. Okay, see you on the next episode of The Crownsman Show.